that it is 7 o'clock, I'll just start since we're already live. Then I will call the hearing to order. And before we get started, I will introduce everyone at this meeting. Sandy Brock. I am the chair of the Conservation Commission. When I call your name, please confirm you're present and I can hear you. And we're going to start with the commissioners. Alicia Bergeron.
I'm here.
Helen Cheney.
I am here.
Jonathan Nickerson.
I'm here.
And Patrick Hegel.
I'm here.
Great. We also have staff on board here. Leah Cameron, who is our agent.
Here.
And Samantha Lyon, the assistant.
Present.
Okay. And we're going to have a series of anticipated speakers that will be presenting projects. It will be Norman Hill of Land Planning, Thomas Mahana of Ty and Bond, and Bree Sullivan of Bayside Engineering. Once we get to your hearing, I'll ask you to announce yourself and introduce yourself. In order to mitigate the transmission, one step back here. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with the Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's orders suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. We'll talk a little bit more of that in a moment. The order, which you can find posted to the town's website at www.grafton-mass.gov, allows public bodies, i.e. the Conservation Commission, to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meetings. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission, for this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening by telephone and video conference via Zoom as posted on the website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. All supporting materials that have been provided to the Commission are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Before we get started, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I also ask for everyone's patience because this process will be a little bit slower than we typically have during public hearings. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first read public comments, questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board and/or applicant responses. The chair will read real-time comments, questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature by real-time board applicant responses. Please note, anyone wishing to contribute comments or have questions via the chat feature, they need to be addressed to everyone, not solely an individual. In addition, please make sure you put your name and address in the chat box. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, so at this point from the commissioners and staff, are there any questions or did I miss anything? Okay.
I'm all good.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we take care of a couple of the action items I'll open the first public hearing, which will be continued. Once we continue that, then we'll go to Stowe Road. So, as far as action items, so the first one up is the meeting minutes for the February 18th, 2020 public hearing. Does anyone have any comments or recommendations for changes? I also like to note that we have a new conservation member joining us for the first time at the public hearing tonight, and that's Jonathan Nickerson. So I'll just defer to you. If you do not wish to vote on the meeting minutes, that's totally up to you. Since the meeting minutes are not voting, it's just looking at the communication of the minutes. If you have any comments or questions, you certainly can participate.
Okay, thank you.
And so this is where I am going to ask for a motion. Well, excuse me, let me back up one step. This is where it's going to take a little time. I will poll the commissioners to see if they have any comments or recommendations on the minute meetings. And so I'll start with Patrick. Any comments or questions?
No comments.
Jonathan?
No comments.
Alicia?
No comments.
Helen?
No comment.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes from the February 18th meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick, for making the motion, Alicia for seconding it. I will now do a quick roll call. Patrick, do you accept the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Jonathan, do you accept the meeting minutes? And you can always recuse yourself from voting on this.
I haven't reviewed them, so I'm not going to vote.
Very good. Alicia?
I accept the meeting minutes.
Helen?
I accept these meeting minutes.
I also accept them, so that's 4 ayes and one recused. So, okay. So, seeing that it's 7:07, what other items, Leah, should we look at for action items?
Just go right down the list if you'd like.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Follow up on the enforcement order for 7 Wesson Street.
So this was one that we discussed a little while ago, where a homeowner had a beaver deceiver installed, but then was doing like man-made water management off to the side as well. So in the meantime, since the last meeting, I talked to a wildlife biologist with Fisheries and Wildlife, and he went out and took a look himself, took some additional photos, and he believes that the water level is fine upstream and down, and that enough flow is getting through the device. So his recommendation is leaving it as it is now, which is just the beaver dam and the beaver deceiver. The homeowner had removed the man-made plank dam when we had sent the enforcement order at first, so he recommends just keeping it that way. And he also made a note that one of the panels was off of the beaver deceiver cage and laying nearby, so that needs to be replaced before the beavers would get in. I have also circled back to the homeowner at the end of March and relayed all of this to him, and he was fine with it all and happy to keep the communication open going forward.
Okay. So as far as this enforcement order, so we should be looking to just close it at this point since we've investigated it?
Sure. Yep. That sounds good.
Okay. I will ask if any of the commissioners have any comments or questions on this. Okay, I see none. And so can I have a motion to, what would be the correct wording, Leah, to close?
What did we call it before? Let me look. We made a form once for this because it happens not very often. Oh, release the enforcement order.
So do I have a motion to release the enforcement order?
I'll move to release the enforcement order.
Do I have a second?
I second.
So it's been motioned and moved. As if there's any comments. I'm seeing none. I will go around and poll the members. Patrick, your vote to release.
Yes.
Jonathan, again, you can always recuse yourself.
I was at that meeting in the audience, but I wasn't part of the commission at that time, so I'll recuse.
Okay, great. Alicia
I vote yes.
and Helen.
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes, so that's 4 and 1 abstention. Okay. Designate new representations from the Conservation Commission to the Lake Quinsigamond Commission and Open Space and Recreation Commission. So,
Yeah, these are a couple of committees that we had representatives on before. We don't at the moment, so we're needing to put someone else in those places. And I got a little bit of meeting info for you guys.
okay.
The Lake Quinsigamond Commission meets monthly. It's usually the 4th or last Wednesday of the month. Most of their meetings are about an hour, 7 to 8 at night. Sometimes an hour and a half, but that's pretty unusual. And then the Open Space and Rec meets very infrequently, and they are getting ready to accept the latest draft of the open space plan. So it would probably be even less frequent after that happens, if I had to guess.
Okay. So does anyone on the commission wish to serve on either one of these as a representative from Conservation? I currently serve on CPC as the Concom representative, so I am not available to do any others, so.
I would do the open space and rec one.
Okay. Okay. Is anyone interested in doing the Lake Quinsigamond Commission?
Well, I would be interested, but my plate is pretty darn full right now. Perhaps later on in the year, if it's still, still needs to be filled, I would like to contribute, but I can't stretch myself that thin
I totally
at this
understand that.
time.
Yep, totally understand that. And I don't know if they're just going to be having remote meetings for the near future. I know they sometimes have challenges in having people actually show up. So,
For Quinsig.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's what Scott had said. He was a previous rep.
Okay.
So why don't we, I appreciate that, Helen. So why don't we table that to the next meeting? And we can double check. So they're the 4th Wednesday. Yeah, that's just, yeah. Okay, so why don't we table that to the next meeting and
Sure.
see if we can get someone else. And then Alicia, thank you for getting onto the open Space and Recreation Committee. Okay. Moving on, next one is request for certificate of compliance for Flint Pond Drive for the curtain drain.
So this was, it's like a condo development, and they came before us a little while ago. They needed to do some drainage work out behind a few of the units. They've finished that work. I went by, it's done, the site's stable. We got a detailed letter from their engineer. So I recommend that you issue the certificate of compliance.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments on this?
Where is this again, the address?
It's Flint Pond Estates. It's so the name of the road for that development is Flint Pond Drive. It's off of Creeper Hill.
Creeper Hill, yeah, okay, I know where it is. Okay. I have no comment.
Okay. Do I have a motion, please? Oh, Patrick, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was on a different screen looking at the Dropbox. I'll move to issue the certificate of compliance for Flint Pond Drive.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor, I'll go around quickly. Patrick?
Yes.
Jonathan, same thing. If you don't feel comfortable, you can recuse.
Yep, just because I don't know the background, I recuse for now.
Thank you. Alicia
I vote yes.
and Helen.
I vote yes.
I'm also affirmative, so that is 4 in favor and 1 abstention. All right, seeing that it's 7:15. Okay, so we'll open up the first public hearing, which has asked to be continued. So I will read that in. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission held a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit and application for Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw permit for the construction of a 10-lot subdivision at 18 Carroll Road called Abbey Woods. At this time, the applicant has requested a continuance. Do we know when it's continued to?
As of right now, they picked April 21.
April 21. Okay. Any comments or question on this continuance? See none. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to continue.
And do I have a second?
I second.
I will poll the commissioners. We have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to April 21st. Did I get that right? So, so Patrick, your vote.
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
and Helen.
Yes.
And I'm affirmative. That's unanimous. Okay. Since our next hearing is into 7:30, we're actually going to look to start and hopefully be able to take care of it in the next few minutes. Is a continuance. The continuance is for Stowe Road. So do we have anyone from the public that has joined us?
No, the only other attendee is for the lots on Millbury Street.
Okay. So I will read the continuance for Stowe Road to open the public hearing. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent and application for Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit for the construction of a culvert replacement on Stowe Road over Misco Brook. And representing the project is Bree Sullivan. If you could introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name's Bree Sullivan, and I'm with Bayside Engineering.
And so at this point, if you could give your presentation, Leo will help with showing us whatever plans that you have. And then we will have a little adventure, and good luck to all of us. So let's go ahead and start your presentation.
Okay, so basically, the town retained Bayside Engineering to investigate and come up with a plan to replace or repair the Stowe Road over Misco Brook culvert, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's a pretty good location for a beaver dam, and they my understanding is they clear them out of there as often as they can. I assume they do, of course, with the commission's permission, right? So the existing crossing was installed probably 100 years ago, thereabouts. We've seen construction like this at various places in the state where they use old railroads. So basically the superstructure is old railroad rails from railroad tracks, and they encase them in concrete. And it's worked well for a number of years, but it has reached the end of its service life. The crossing is undersized at approximately 8 feet is the span. I think it's a little less than that. And basically what happens during high flow events is the water rushes through here It has scoured out underneath the roadway. Basically, when I walk in from the downstream side, which is the Cider Mill Pond side, it's probably 1.5 to 2 feet deep. When I get under the culvert, I'm probably 4 feet. It's 4 feet deep, almost 4.5 feet deep in the center. I got to walk on my tiptoes. So, so that's something we're trying to address as well with this new culvert. We've determined through our study that the best way to do it is to actually replace the culvert. It's beyond repair. We want to be able to put something that has additional capacity to carry the design storm, which is the 10-year storm. And our analysis has shown that typically, as you know, in these locations like this to be consistent with the stormwater regulations or in compliance with the stormwater regulations and the stream crossing standards, rather. We like to do bank full width times 1.2 times, 1.2 times the bank full width, excuse me. In this location, the bank full width was determined to be approximately 27 feet. So for us to put a 32-foot crossing in here, it just doesn't really make that much sense. So we did want to improve it. So we went with a 14-foot crossing, ran the analysis for the 14-foot crossing, saw that it had better performance, slowed the velocity down through the culvert, and overall is an improvement. So basically, the replacement is going to be a 3-sided box, reinforced concrete box, remove the existing culvert, remove the existing upstream masonry channel walls, and basically regrade upstream and minor regrading downstream, and put a 3-sided box culvert in there, not unlike what's there now. There'll be a natural stream bed in there, and crash tested guardrails on top on the roadway, and then reconstruct the roadway basically in its place. The roadway will be raised ever so slightly, but that doesn't affect floods upstream or downstream. So we had to do that because the deck thickness is a little bit thicker than it is now. So basically that's it for the proposed structure. I will review how it meets the stream crossing standards very briefly. So basically, we meet all of the standards, the general standards, with as stated in the standards, with the exception of the crossing. As I had mentioned, the crossing would be approximately 32 feet if we were going to meet the standards. Our crossing is 14 feet. So it's a significant improvement over the existing in all respects. And that's about it.
All right, thank you. So I'll go around the commission to see if I have a couple questions, but I'll start with Patrick. Do you have any questions?
I don't think, no, nothing at this time.
And Leah, as far as Jonathan goes, he can't participate because he wasn't in the original.
Correct.
So I am going to actually, if Jonathan has any questions on what this process is, please ask them.
Okay.
But if not, we can't really respond to any of you will not be able to vote on this one. So.
That's fine.
Okay. Do you have any questions, general questions on what we're doing, or any of the things that the applicant is asking us to waive?
No, I don't.
Okay. Alicia, do you have any questions? And I saw Alicia say no and shake her head, so.
No, sorry.
No problem. And Helen, do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, I do. Just a quick one. In constructing this 3-sided box, when you install that, do you have to actually prevent any water from, do you dam up the Misco Brook, Great Meadows side, and then install that and then let the water flow through, or how do you do that? And what are some of the things that can change the dynamics down there when, or what's the time frame that you do something like this in? Is it a season or a week or 2 months or what? May I ask?
So we've done culvert replacements in as quickly as 4 days. This particular culvert can't be done that quickly because of the way that we have to set the footings on either side. So this area is very shallow to ledge. The borings showed, I think it was one of the sides, it was 7 feet to ledge, and the other side was like 9 feet to ledge or something like that. So because we have to prep the ledge and form the footing on the ledge, it's going to take a little bit longer. There are within the plans. When you approve the plans, the control of water will be approved as well. There are specific instructions here to use a temporary culvert in the middle of this existing culvert to channel the water through so that the run of river is maintained at all times.
Okay.
You know, this location with this flow that can come through here, even under normal circumstances, it's really difficult to dam up one end. In a lot of cases, that's what we'll do with smaller culverts. My concern is that bypass pumping would be tough here because of the volume that could be expected. Of course, we want to do it during low flow. In fact, if you look on page, I think it's 2 of the plan set, there's a control of water plan on there, and it shows the pipe, and it shows how they're gonna set that up, and it's got some guidelines in there.
What page was that again?
Page 2.
Okay. Can you guys see that?
Right-hand corner there, you can see the control of water where it shows a 4-foot diameter minimum pipe or box. That's a concrete pipe or box. And then basically a sandbag type water dam on the upstream end and the downstream end, because the culvert's flooded during normal water levels, ordinary water levels. So we have to actually dam it up from both sides.
Okay.
But in essence, that just gives us time to be able to work on the footings for the new culvert. And that's why we do it that way.
Oh, thank you. Now, you're the engineer, but will the town highway department actually be doing the construction here, or is there another contractor that's going to be actually installing the box?
So my understanding is that this will be bid for a contractor to do.
Okay.
At 14 feet, and so some towns undertake some pretty large culvert replacement projects, and I don't know whether the 14-foot span is beyond the capabilities of the DPW. I mean, typically culverts of this size require a really large crane because the sections can be really heavy. So typically it's outsourced. I've seen some towns what they'll do is they'll hire the components that they need to hire, and then they'll do the rest of the work. But at this size, generally, it's not usually attempted.
That's a very small area to put a crane in.
It is.
But I guess, whoever does it will know what they're doing, hopefully. But it's such a small little section of road. But thank you very much, Bree. You've enlightened me with what the plan is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if I can just add to the response Brian typed in the chat for us, once it's approved, the project will go out to bid.
Okay, and Brian is the assistant town engineer.
Correct.
So I have just a couple of follow-up on Helen's question, and one of it is a question to the applicant's representative, is that are you requiring your specifications that the contractor will provide a dewatering plan based on your details, or are the details sufficient to direct the contractor exactly what to do?
So I believe, basically with our control of water, what we do is we require the contractor to submit their control of water plan completely for approval to either the engineer or whoever's approving the shop drawings, however that's arranged with the client. So in this case, let me see here. The contractor shall submit to the engineer complete control of water plan, including construction sequencing steps, including but not limited to pre-installation, site prep, control of water materials, installation steps, removal steps, and stream bed stabilization.
So just for your information, we will put a special condition in our order of conditions to require that plan be submitted with any of your comments on the shop drawings.
Okay.
Particular. So we just understand, and Leah has that information of what exactly the contractor is supposed to be doing by contract. So
definitely.
Okay. And then we'll also, so when you talked about the schedule to do this, and you said obviously it'll take more than 4 days. Are you looking for 2 or 3 weeks, or do you think this is a month or two project?
So I think because of the way that the footings have to be set in this project, I think it's going to be up to a month, maybe a month and a half. There are certain things that can be done before the road is closed. The exploratory test pits can be done to see what the ledge looks like, and then they can backfill, they can plate the roadway. But as far as the road closure is concerned, I think it's going to take a fair amount of time.
Okay. And just because we'll also have a special condition related to doing the work during a low flow period.
Absolutely.
So, and do you have any suggestions on what you think that period would be? If you say you're going to do it in August, then we'll put that in the order of conditions. I just don't want to artificially create a scheduling issue for the town.
So, yeah, I mean, I think usually we see that low flow is anywhere from August through October or somewhere in there. But, you know, we've seen that that's not always the case.
Correct.
I wouldn't necessarily want to, I wouldn't want to put a time of year restriction if low flow occurs at a different time period. So.
Right. So we'll put in a low flow restriction, and somehow that's you have to demonstrate when you're doing it is actually low flow. If you're doing it in a week or two period, you can actually check the forecast, but
yep.
Over a month, that's not going to really work too well. And obviously we'd like to see it in the summertime,
Sure.
And generally July to October. So,
I mean, I think in this location, because the culvert is flooded, it's not going to matter much. I mean, the elevation will come up obviously when the you know, obviously in the spring thaw, which usually the water will come up. But in this case, even during low flow, there's lots of water in the culvert. So
gotcha. It's a good base flow. Okay. And then you had included an invasive species management plan provided in your notice of intent. We will actually have a special condition that says it shall be implemented. It's just following up and specifically identifying that. And my only question is, I understand, you know, doing your bank full and using your 1.2 and having, you know, a 32-foot wide span there, you know, that's a little bit of a pretty major bridge. How did you decide on 14 feet as opposed to 16 feet or 12 feet? What was kind of the criteria from a calculation standpoint that made you decide on 14?
So what I did is I looked at the profile grade of the stream, and so there's going to be a restoration of the stream profile, because at the crossing now it dips down. If you look at the profile on page 1, we want to restore that stream. And then we decided to make it 14 feet because when we grade the cross section, we're able to get land above the ordinary high water elevation.
Yeah.
So at ordinary high water, presumably, you should be able to, terrestrial wildlife should be able to go through the culvert during ordinary high water.
Okay. I was just looking for the kind of the reasoning. I understand that you try to balance the width and so forth, and I'm just curious how you came up with that particular width. So I will check quickly around with the commissioners. Are there any other questions on this particular project? Okay. One of the things that we have to make a finding on is the fact that the culvert does not meet totally the stream. I'm sorry, I'm getting very distracted. Sorry, but it doesn't. It actually does not meet the stream crossing standards, and that's because of what we just discussed. And so we'll also have to put a finding in the order of conditions to that effect. So if I don't see anything from the commissioners, and we do not have, other than another comment from Brian, who is the assistant engineer, and he had indicated that Leah had already said that it's going out to bid. He also indicated chapter 90 funds will be used, and as such, the contract will be Mass DOT approved, and will have previous experience, and also dealt with the work at Lake Whipple Dam and with a sandbag usage to divert flow, and Brian is very familiar with working through this with a previous agent through this process. So just want to just read that for the public. Did we have any other questions or comments from the public on this particular culvert replacement? And again, if you could just put your name and address if you do have any questions. This is your opportunity to chat with us, and I'm just kind of babbling at the moment to see if anyone is trying to type something in. Seeing no one type in a question or any kind of comment on this particular project, we'll look to actually have a motion. So we have 3 special conditions and 1 finding. Do I have a motion? Whoops, yep.
Can I just point out, you guys already voted on their waiver request at a previous meeting.
Okay.
So we already granted the waiver to allow work within the 25-foot no disturb due to the nature of the work.
Thank you. And all of the DEP comments have been addressed, and I know they talked about the findings. So.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So do I have a motion to approve this notice of intent with the 3 conditions and the finding of that we approve the proposed 14-foot width, and which is not in compliance with the stream crossing, yet it is an improvement and it meets the intent of the crossing. So
I'll move to approve approve the notice of intent with the 3 conditions mentioned and the finding mentioned.
okay. Do I have a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion on this? So I will go around, and Patrick, do you have any comments or discussions on this?
I do not.
Jonathan, again, you weren't involved in the previous meeting, so you will not be able to vote on this.
Understood.
Alicia, any comments or questions?
Nope.
Helen, any other questions that you may have?
Not at this time.
Okay, still nothing from the public. And is there anything that Bree that you have to say? Because we're going to just vote on it right now. Do you have anything else to add or questions? Okay. Patrick, your vote.
Yes.
And I'm skipping over Jonathan. Alicia, your vote.
Yes.
And Helen, your vote.
Yes.
And I am also affirmative. So we have 4 with 1 abstention. So thank you very much. And we're all set with this. Hey, we should all
Thank you.
toast. Let all toast that we got through the first public hearing under the COVID-19 state of emergency. Okay, now, all right. So let's go back to, whoops, excuse me. So we'll go back to the 7:30 hearing. We will open that. That's also a continuance. So 7:30. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will reopen a public hearing via Zoom to act upon a notice of intent for a 39 lot subdivision at 88 Adams Road called the Ridings. And this applicant has requested a continuance to April 21st. Do I have a motion to continue this hearing?
I'll move to continue this to April 21st.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, again, I'll go through and do a roll call. So Jonathan, again, you hadn't been involved in this, so you should abstain on this particular project. Now all the pitches moved around, so I'm out of order here and doing the roll call. So Alicia, what is, do you approve the continuance?
I approve the continuance.
Patrick?
Yes.
Helen?
I approve.
And I also an affirmative, 4 to 1 to continue the hearing until April 21st. Okay. The next hearing is at 7:45. It is not quite 7:45 yet. Is there any quick action items that we can take care of?
Yes. If we skip down a little bit, the second to last action item we have is to review and approve. We have a handful of conservation land use applications.
Okay.
One came in from the Bay State Trail Riders to have their annual ride at Pell Farm again. We had approved that for them last year, so they're just looking to do the same thing this year. And then the other 2 were for some volunteer land stewardship work. One is for, we had a volunteer offer to just do some like pruning back of overgrown brush at, I believe it was Hennessy and the Weber property where we have a CR on it. And the other is Helen and her son are working on opening back up one of the side paths at Miriam Road Conservation Area that historically was there and now it's grown over. So we had created this application a little while ago for when people want to do something out of the ordinary on one of our properties so it can be on our radar. So we have those 3 for you guys.
Okay. Any discussion on any one of these applications? And for Jonathan's information, what it is that the Conservation Commission controls several large parcels of land throughout, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to do any hiking or walking on any of these parcels, but a couple of years ago we came up with an application process when people want to do certain activities just to have a little bit better control. And so generally there are these type of applications. The trail ride is actually horses and so forth. So and they've done it previously. So we just have a process to go through. So this one here is, you know, trail ride and 2 volunteers, and one of them happens to be one of our commissioners. So
That's great.
Having said that, the only other thing to say, Helen, if you need help, let me know. If it's on
Same thing.
And then other than that, do I have a motion to approve these 3 applications?
On the second one, do we know anything about what exactly they're doing to clear the trail and how they're doing it?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of discussion with her so far. So I had her identify where, so it's Hennessy. She showed me on a map a couple of the spots she has in mind. I did specify hand tools only because she had talked about potentially bringing like a weed whacker or something to that effect. But I also checked the documents that we have on the properties to make sure nothing restricts what she was looking to do. Basically, similar to what we all probably do on a walk anyways. Something's in the way, just trim it out of the way. It sounded pretty low key, but we can coordinate with her further, or if there's any other conditions you wanted to specify, we can do that as well.
Okay. I mean, that sounds fine to me personally. But.
All right, great. Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve these 3 applications?
I would move to approve these 3 applications.
Do I have a second?
I second.
And I'll do a roll call. So Jonathan, do you approve of the applications?
Yes.
Alicia,
I approve.
Patrick,
Yes, I approve.
Helen,
I certainly approve.
and I am also affirmative, so unanimous on those 3 there. Great. Okay. So getting back to now that it is 7:46, we will go to our next public hearing. So pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 7th, that's today, to act upon a notice of intent to construct a single-family homes at 95 and 97 Millbury Street in Grafton. So the applicant is present, and our applicant's representative is Norman Hill. So Norman, if you could just introduce yourself and then give a brief presentation. Leah will help with any kind of plans. If you have any questions before that, feel free to ask. So you got to unmute Leah. Yeah, someone's got to unmute yourself. Technical difficulties.
How's that better?
Yes, now we can hear you. So just go ahead and start with your introduction and go ahead and go into the plans.
Yes, good evening. My name is Norman Hill. I'm a civil engineer with the consulting firm of Land Planning. And I'd like to start by talking about the existing site. I've got a drawing here I'd like to show you as well.
Yeah.
About like
So
that.
I can pull up whatever you need me to and share it through this app. You just got to cue me to do so. Would you like the plan right now, or were you looking for an aerial?
I'd like you to, maybe an aerial would be fine.
Okay, hang on one sec.
So the site is located about 300 or 400 feet from the Millbury Street Elementary School. Yeah, here's the site. Yeah, that's the site right there that you're pointing to. And there was a house there that burnt down a little over a year ago. Well, you see the number 16, there was a house right about there. Actually, you can see the footprint a little bit near the street. Millbury Street's at the top of the plan. And now these 2 lots, this is how the lots were shaped until we reshaped them. We did a new A&R plan to change the dividing line. The dividing line, we were just 2 rectangular lots, but because of the wetlands on the left-hand side of the plan, we shifted that middle lot line over to the right to get the house further away from the wetlands. Now the school is down the street about 300 feet to the left of this site. So we all know where this site is located. Yeah, you can see the school down the street. Yeah. So if you could call up the design plan, Leah, that'd be great. So we're talking about lot 95 now?
Whatever order you would like.
All right, let's talk to the one on the right. This is, yep, that's number 95. But let me talk about the existing conditions of the site. You can see the wetland line around the left. And there's a couple of fingers. So behind this site is a large hill. And the water runs off the hill in a downpour and goes into this low spot over on the left side of the property. So on the back of the property is like a little ditch where the water comes off the hill, hits that ditch and goes left into the wetlands. And then it comes out of the wetlands, there's a finger that goes up to the right. And then there's a pipe there, an existing culvert that heads out towards the street. So the water will actually go into that culvert when it's pouring or in the spring when the snow's melting. So we flagged this BVW here, and I believe we had that line. I can't remember. Was I in front of you with a plan on this years ago? I can't remember if that line's already been confirmed by Arthur or not. But anyway, we have that wetland line there that I flagged. So lot number 95 is the one on the right. It's 40,000 square feet of land. There are no wetlands on lot 95R. We've got the roof runoff going into 6 quick 4 infiltrator units in the front left corner of the house there. I'm pointing at it, but you can't see my finger pointing. But so we're going to take that roof runoff, put it there, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about this lot 95. We're not altering any wetlands. We're not within 25 feet of any wetlands. There is an existing driveway up near the street on the right-hand side of the lot, but that driveway is going to return to Lumen Seed because there's a wetland just off the property up to the right. So we want to be sure we restore a 25-foot no disturb area up there. So that driveway will be converted, will be loomed and seeded, brought back to lawn.
Okay, so first of all, we'll go around the commission, ask the commission. So we're dealing with 95 at the moment. Does anyone have any questions for 95? So Patrick, do you have any questions? You're still on mute.
Sorry. No questions at this time.
Okay. Jonathan, do you have any questions on this particular project?
No questions.
Okay. Alicia, do you have any questions?
I do not.
And Helen, do you have any questions?
I actually do. This is, if I recall correctly, this entire lot plus lot that you're in charge of, Mr. Hill, was that, what are the plans to actually take out the soils and so on that might have been contaminated? Was this not a dwelling and a garage that had a lot of automobile and stuff that was there for a long time and possibly contaminated the soil? I mean, no offense, please. It's a mess, and it has been for a while. And I know that folks are cleaning it up and getting rid of a lot of the debris and so on. But if I recall correctly, when that house burnt, there was some concerns about propane, and it was a pretty hot fire. And I just was wondering, what are the soils? Right now, what do the soils look like? And I mean, is there going to be a process to remove anything like that, or is there concern at all?
I agree. The site was a mess. The house existed about where we're proposing the house on 97. And to the left of that house, there were 4 or 5 junk vehicles and farm equipment and propane tanks. It was a mess. Our client is starting to fix up the site. He wants to turn this into 2 nice house lots. We haven't done any testing of the soil. I would hope that whatever was spilt there would be just in the top few inches. You know, you get a leaking motor oil, you know, drip, 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 you know, but that would result in a little stain on top of the soil. But yeah, I haven't really talked to my client about doing any testing out here. I don't believe there are any buried oil tanks out here. So I don't believe that, I don't know of any large spills. DEP doesn't have any recorded spills on this site. But
well, it's just so, you know, close to the wetland and a wetland. And, you know, I know that the dwelling was there for a long time, and generations of activity went on there. I just would be concerned with that sort of thing being addressed before going forward for the sake of, the house buyers that are going to be looking at the houses and buying the lots and so on, especially concerning with that particular kind of material that could be lingering in the soil. Just a comment, sir.
Yeah, I've done a lot of 21E work in the past, and to confirm that a site is not contaminated, we would dig a couple of 3 holes, maybe 2 or 3 holes, and send the tests off to the lab. We take a sample at the surface, maybe take a 5 feet deep. And
is
then
that something you've already done?
We have not done it on this site.
Uh-huh.
I haven't talked to my client about it. To send it off to the lab, it's not a big expense. My client might spend $1,500 taking the samples and maybe another $1,500 on the lab work. It's probably not a bad idea. Maybe you would consider approving this site with the condition that we do soil testing and groundwater testing and get you those results before a building permit could be issued.
I think that's a very valid request for my other commissioners to consider, given the history of that piece of property, just to be on the safe side, of course.
No, I think it's wise.
Any other questions, Helen?
No, not at this time.
So Leah, can you go through what the status of the review is and what your initial review is of when, again, we're talking about 95?
Sure. So there were just a couple outstanding items on this one. I had requested clearer plans. I don't know if you guys echo that sentiment, but I was asking for maybe color coding or one lot on its own plan instead of both on one, because it's a little bit hard to follow. But I leave that up to you guys. Other than that, the applicant had filled out applications for both lots, including waiver requests for work within the no disturb, but citing that it was for restoration purposes, they didn't pay the waiver request fee. So I wanted you guys to rule in on that as well.
Okay. Waive the waiver fee.
Say that again.
Waive the waiver fee because it's restoration.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the existing driveway is very near to that wetland area on the upper right-hand side of the property near Millbury Street. And our client would like to convert that to lawn. So he'd be pulling out that gravel, putting in loam and seed. And that is within 25 feet of that little wetland area over there.
And also the Board of Health also made a comment that at 95, there'll need to be testing of the well water, which kind of supports what Helen was asking about too.
Yes.
Okay. And Leah, what were your recommendations?
Sandy, we're going to actually be connecting houses to town water.
Oh, it's going to get connected to both of them are?
Both houses will be connected to town water and town sewer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So no septic systems, no wells.
Correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, Leah, I've messed up my sheets in front of me. What were your recommendations for this project?
So I actually hadn't quite filled that in yet because I wasn't sure if you guys were gonna ask for clearer plans or not. But other than that, in the waiver question, those were the only things I had outstanding from issuing these.
All right, no, that's great. So, so let's first take the waiver request. So this to the rest of the commissioners, and I will kind of do a quick roll call on your opinion of this. First, I'd like to clarify what's basically being requested. What I think is being requested from Norman is that because this is all just restoration work, and they're not actually doing anything to the 25-foot no disturbance. They're actually restoring it to maybe lawn, maybe not natural, but to lawn. Is that what you're requesting, in Norman?
Yes, that's what we're requesting, yes.
Okay, so I'll just quickly go around. Patrick, what's your kind of opinion on waiving that $50 fee since both of all the work that's being done specifically for 95 is within the no disturb zone, and it's actually being restored.
Right. And it's basically gravel and loose stuff right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Alicia, do you have any kind of thoughts on that? Okay. And Jonathan, do you have any thoughts on that? I know I saw you shake your head, Alicia. Yes.
No, I don't have any thoughts. That sounds reasonable based on what Peter said.
Yeah. And Helen, do you have any thoughts on that?
I feel that waivering that fee would be fine, would be appropriate.
All right. And so in general, it's just, so one question I have for Norman is, so you're going to pull up the gravel and so forth. What type of plant material are you putting back in that area?
Well, I would suggest 4 to 6 inches of screened loam, and then grass seed.
Okay. So it's going to vegetation. It's not going to natural, a natural vegetation, a naturalized vegetation.
No, we were proposing just grass seed.
Okay. And I don't, in this case here, since they're removing the material and at least getting it back to a more porous, more natural state, if not a naturalized system, but it is a step in the right direction. I don't have a problem for the waiver. The only thing, whenever we, do something like this, we want to make sure that we clearly indicate that this is not a policy that we have. It's a case by case, and it's specifically for this particular case. So, having said that, can I have a motion on the waiver of the waiver fee?
So I would move to waive the waiver fee with the note that this is specifically because of the findings that we've already addressed.
Do I have a second? And you have to unmute yourself.
I second. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. You can probably leave it on now. So let's have a vote on that particular motion. Patrick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
And I am also affirmative to that. Okay, so that's the waiver for the no disturb. So let's talk about conditions. I think, so let's talk first about the plans and so forth. Yeah, I mean, the plans aren't super clear, but I can understand them. I think it would be helpful to have things color coded, but that's kind of a different discussion in general. Does anyone else have any kind of concerns with the plans and the readability of the plans? What it is if you're not used to reading a lot of these plans, you're not going to pick up where the lot lines are very easily. And the thing that is hard to pick up is the fact that the lot line is shifting, is no longer a straight line, and has a whole bunch of bends in it.
Oh.
That's really what's happening.
Yeah, that proposed hedgerow is right on the lot line between the two houses.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
It was also a little bit difficult to determine where this existing driveway is that is going to be restored within the 25-foot no disturb. That was one of the main reasons that triggered my comment.
Yeah, we've shown the existing driveway in the upper right-hand corner of the lot going out to the street. You can see the boundaries of that existing gravel driveway.
Yeah.
I see the new one better than I see the old one.
Yeah, I don't see the old one. Actually, existing stone driveway to be abandoned on the right.
Yes, that's it, yes.
It kind of ends because it probably peters out into the
Cuts.
where the house was.
Yes.
So yeah, I can see where it's noted with the two solid lines. It's just that it's not a shaded color, and yeah, so it's a little bit tough to read, but I think there's enough information on the plan that's okay. Any other comments? At least, is there any other comments? And Leah, do you see where those lines are?
Yep.
Yeah, I get why you brought up that question, especially because it's so damn close. So I have a question on that, to that specific point. You're going to be removing that driveway on the site, but that driveway goes out over another property line. So you're only moving up to the property line.
Well, we'll ask the neighbor for permission to remove it all. That reminds me of a funny story. I got a call one day from a client who said, my neighbor's driveway is on my lot. Or I forget how she phrased it, but she thought it was terrible that her neighbor's driveway was, that her neighbor's land was on her driveway. We have here too.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, all we can expect is to the removal to be up to the property line, because you don't have permission to do the others, but the notice will be written in such a way that you could actually remove that. We would just need to get some sort of letter or something that says you have permission to do it.
All right, we'll seek that. All right.
Yeah. Just something for the file.
Yep.
Are there any other questions or any other kind of conditions that belong on this particular number 95? Looking up and down, I don't see anything. Do I see a motion to approve the notice of intent for 95?
And are we going to include a special condition for requiring the soil test that we discussed before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, soil and groundwater testing.
Yep.
I would move to approve the notice of intent.
Okay. So I have a motion with a special condition. Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. I will do a quick roll call to get the approval. Patrick.
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Congratulations, your first vote.
Thanks.
In Helen.
Yes, don't forget me.
No, you're just not showing up right at the moment. That's why.
No, I know.
I've been using the images to kind of, so I don't forget anyone. And I am also affirmative, so that's approved.
Thank you.
Okay. So since I've already opened the hearing for both of these, Norman, if you want to go to 97, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, if you look at the plan for 97, we brought the driveway in for 97 where the existing driveway is now to the house that burnt down. And that driveway is within 25 feet of that wetland finger that heads to the upper right. You see wetland flag 10 there. So that driveway is very close to that wetland right now. In fact, it's probably only about 9 or 10 feet away from it. But we didn't want to do any more disturbance there, so we just brought the driveway in where the existing driveway is. But then we hooked it over to the right to get it away from the wetlands. And then the house is about where the other house was, but a little further to the right. And we centered the house between the front wetlands in front and wetlands in back. So the house is about 42 feet from that finger that goes out towards the street, and it's about 42 feet from that swale that's behind the house. So we positioned it to get it 42 feet from both. And then we've shown the siltation controls, but in two areas, the siltation controls are within 25 feet of the wetlands. The first spot is where the driveway comes in. We've got the siltation controls maybe 4 or 5 feet from the edge of wet. And out back, behind the house, again, we've got the siltation controls just 3 or 4 feet off that swale in order to provide a nice backyard for the people who live in this house. So, we'd like to give them 40, maybe 35 feet of backyard and 20 some feet of side yard and another 35 feet of yard out in front of the house. So they'll have a nice yard if they have children. So that's why we designed it the way we did. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on this lot.
So I have some issues with the fact that you're asking for relief from the 25-foot no disturb zone, since you're creating a second lot where there wasn't one before. So this is a created hardship, and it's not, it's not like you're replacing the house that burnt with a single house. You're actually trying to do two houses. And I just, I don't understand why we should be approving, a waiver from the 25-foot no disturb, since this is a created issue.
Well, if I may say that this area is already altered, it's already cleared. If you look at the existing tree line follows our hay bale line. So it's already cleared. Much of it is already gravel. This was a pretty ugly site. It's all stripped and there's some weeds growing, but it's mostly just dirt.
And what's the square footage of the house? And you have a 2-car garage. I guess I have a problem that if this was previously a lot where the house had burnt and you're replacing it, I get it, but this is a case where you had a single house that burnt, and now you're trying to shoehorn 2 houses in, and you're asking for relief from one of our bylaw requirements, which we do not tend to waive, except for, as pointed out on 95, where you're actually improving the condition. So I just don't understand why we should even waive this. This is kind of, you got to tell me why.
Well, I'm looking at the plan, and we basically were thinking, it's already altered, but we could redesign this to move the driveway further to the right, away from that finger, and we could put in a smaller house further to the right, and maybe provide you with your 25-foot buffer all the way around. I believe we could do that. It would cut back on their backyard. The front yard doesn't matter that much, but it sounds like you feel pretty strongly about that, Sandra. Why don't you continue this hearing then and give me an opportunity to revise this plan? And I'd like to ask anyone else if they have any other comments.
Yeah, and I would like to, and I don't want you just to hear from me. I'd also like to go through the commission and get their opinion on kind of this particular lot. So Patrick, do you have any comments on this?
I don't think I have anything additional to add, but I would echo your same concerns. Pretty much exactly that I agree with what you're saying, Sandy.
Okay, Alicia.
So my question is, with the interim stream that's jetting out into the front yard, is there anything that's going to be done to make sure that the property owners don't fill that in or do plantings there, just because that wetlands area, a big chunk out of their front yard? I'm just concerned with them filling it in or putting things there that don't belong in that area.
Well, we would put up signs every 50 feet marking that area. We could put up a fence, or we could put some boulders to prevent them from encroaching on that.
Okay. So who else? So Helen, do you have any comments or questions on this here, and specifically about the no disturb, just because it does have an impact on the design, but I want to get your take on it also.
I'm tending to lean towards your opinions and comments, Sandra. There's just a lot of two houses in a small area, and we're just kind of pushing the limits. Perhaps, Mr. Hill, you could reconfigure your design. That would be more inclusive to having less pushing the envelope onto the wetland areas and the buffer zones.
Yes, I will definitely redesign this. Yep.
Yeah. That's my that's my concern.
So, and I'll finish up with Jonathan if you have any kind of comments or questions on this particular one.
My only comment was on, you have infiltration systems coming off the house.
Yes.
Are they going to be below seasonal high water, or are they going to sit above the water table?
Yeah, they'll be above the water table. Yeah.
Okay. That was my only thought looking at that plan, but I echo what Sandy's been saying.
Yeah. Also, we have a comment from Ryan Grass from 122 Millbury Street. And he states that I bought the lot from the town with a letter from the town saying it was a buildable lot. We're only making the lot larger and moving the house further from the wetlands. I guess I would ask Ryan Grass if he could be clear, is he talking about 97 or 95? And I know this is a little bit tedious, sorry, 97. So my understanding of the presentation so far, there was a single lot, a single house on those two lots. And please correct me if I'm not correct in that.
Actually, Sandy, there was a second house.
Okay.
Closer to the school, in the upper left-hand corner of the drawing, between the street and that finger of wetlands. The foundation's still there.
So can we look at the plans?
Yeah, there was a second house in the upper left where it says 100-foot wetland buffer.
Yeah.
Foundation's right there in that tree clearing there.
Okay, so there's no evidence on the plans of that. And how long ago was it removed?
I don't know when it came out. The foundation's still there.
Okay.
May I interject?
Sure.
I recall that dwelling to be like almost like a cabin size house that just was abandoned and it completely fell down and the roof came in, and I recall this back, oh gosh, I remember that back in the 70s, late 60s, and it was just I was told it even had a dirt floor in it, and it was just a small little house. I don't even know if you could call it was a house, but it was abandoned and it fell down.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a suitable spot for a house anymore.
Yeah, that's fine. To me, it's just that you look at this, if you go back without the aerial on it, Leah, and you could see that the structure that burnt was actually over the lot line.
That's correct. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, again, it just feels like you're trying to, create a lawn in with a priority of that over protection of the wetlands. And since our kind of what we're supposed to be doing here is enforcing our regulations and the state regulations and protecting the wetlands, and I'm not going to say yay or nay to whatever that old shed / house shack, whatever it was. It's not there now unless it was there 2 years ago, but it's probably wasn't there 2 years ago. To say that there was a house there before, I mean, I need a heck of a lot more information. If it hasn't been lived in 50 years, that's,
Yeah. No, let us redesign this site, and I think we can come back with something more pleasing to you.
Okay. So what I will do is, first I'll just go to the commissioners if they have any additional comments or questions on 97. Not seeing anyone, and then I would just also reach out to anyone in the public. We've heard from one person previously, and if there's anyone else that has any comments or questions on this, feel free. Sorry that you can't be face-to-face. It's a little bit more easier to communicate that way, but I think we all understand the situation we're in. But if there is anything else you have to ask, please do so. This is your opportunity to comment on this particular project. Just also for the information for the public, the applicant is requesting a continuance to, Norman, the next meeting, the 21st.
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay. And so this will not be, we're not making any kind of decision on this. It will be back again in front of us and we'll look at it at that point. Seeing no other comments from the public, do I have a motion to continue this notice of intent to April 21st?
I'll move to continue this notice of intent to April 21st.
And do I have a second?
I will second.
Any other discussion? Just a quick question to Norman. Do you understand what our concerns are and do you need any more direction?
No, I've got it.
Okay.
I got it. We have a big house here. I'll tell my client we'll come back. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much and stay well, everybody.
Yeah, so we'll have to do a roll call for the vote. And so I'm going to start with Helen this time.
I vote yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I am also affirmative. And so that's unanimous for the continuance. Okay. That is the end of public hearings, if I'm correct. Am I wrong? Nope. Okay.
The water district at 8.
Okay. Whoops, sorry. Some of your sheets have numbers, page numbers, and other ones do not.
It's an
Here we go.
RDA.
Yep, thank you. So pursuant to the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a request for determination of applicability for water main replacement on Route 122 Worcester Street in the vicinity of houses 60 to 77 in Grafton, Mass. So do we have the applicants on the, and who is that? Leah.
Good evening. It's I'm the project manager with Ty and Bond.
Okay. And if you
I'll be presenting, and Matt Pearson, the water district manager, and Rick Canavan, also from Ty and Bond, are both they're both online and can participate by via chat.
Sure. And can you just give your name?
Sure. It's Thomas Mahana.
Okay. Go ahead and go with your presentation. Leah has the ability to pull up any plans that you need, so ask if you need to have plans brought up.
Sure. Leah, if you could just bring up that, probably the easiest one is that figure 1 that was attached to the RDA. I think that's probably the easiest one just to look at. So good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Tom Mahana. We're the consultant for the Grafton Water District. We're here to present this project, which is a water main replacement on Worcester Street, Route 122, right downtown Grafton. The purpose of this project is to replace a section of water main that has been a source of several breaks for the water district over the last 3 or so years. They've had about 4 or 5 breaks in this area of pipe. It's this area of their distribution system. It's some old cast iron water main. And the project became a high priority recently after MassDOT came in and repaved a section of the road. And then the water main broke shortly thereafter. And some of you may have seen where that happened. It happened right on the edge of the lake. When the water main let go, it took out the sidewalk and rode it out into Lake Ripple. So this project is only about 1,200 or so feet of water main replacement. It's going to begin at it's going to extend from number 77, which is Grafton Liquors, and continue up just beyond the intersection of Providence Road, and at the Legion. So it's a replacement in kind. It's an existing 8-inch water main. We'll replace with a new 8-inch ductile iron water main. We're going to install it adjacent to the existing pipe. So all the work will be within the roadway and within the right of way. There'll be about 7 businesses along this route that will be impacted by this project. They're impacted every time the main breaks. There's a large amount of residences and businesses that are put out of water, but there's only seven businesses here that will be directly impacted by this project. And so the most significant portion for this commission would probably be where we're going to be ending near the Legion. We'll be crossing an existing concrete box culvert. It's about 3.5 feet square. The culvert is deep enough that we're proposing to install the new water main over the existing culvert, and we can do that by just installing some bends and some insulated pipe to minimize the amount of disturbance. So the project will again it'll be installed adjacent to the existing water main when the project is all done, and all the side streets and businesses are all connected. The existing water main will be abandoned in place, and then the road will be repaved. We met with MassDOT today. They're going to be issuing a permit for this project, hopefully by the end of this week. So what we'll end up doing probably next year when the final paving is complete, we'll be overlaying probably half the road where the work is being done. But this work we're hoping to begin as soon as possible, and should take about 4 to 6 weeks to complete. And all the work, the trenches will all be covered up at night, and paving, the trenches will all be temporarily paved for the remainder of this year, and then final paving will occur next year. I believe that's most of the details of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, appreciate that. So I'll go around to the commission if anyone has any questions on this one. So I'll start with Alicia. Do you have any questions?
Do not.
Okay. Patrick?
I don't at this time.
John?
I don't.
And Helen?
I don't.
I have a very quick question. Just how close, what's the cover going to be over the water line, over the culvert?
Over the culvert, it'll probably be about, the bottom of the pipe will be about 1 foot above the top of the culvert, and I think there's going to be about 2 feet of cover over the top of the culvert, over the top of the water main.
Yeah. And have you looked at the culvert, and what kind of shape is the culvert in?
Yeah, we've done an inspection of it. Just a visual inspection. We haven't done a structural analysis of it. It's an old culvert, but it appears to be in good shape. We're expecting that we won't disturb this, hopefully at all. Again, we'll be crossing it within the existing roadway.
Okay. And it's pretty clear that all this work is within the roadway, and it is a minor activity. It does fall underneath our bylaw. The only thing that we also need to vote on is that this work will occur within the 25-foot no disturbance, and for obvious reasons, there's no way around that. So do I have any questions or comments on the waiver from anyone on the commission? Okay. Before we get to that, I'm just going to put it out there. If there's anyone from the public that has any comments or questions on this particular notice of intent, I'm asking you now because I know it's going to take you a little bit to type in. So if you do have any questions, please ask them, and we're going to go ahead and actually consider the waiver for working in the no disturb zone. So is there any comments or questions about this particular waiver?
I just have one quick comment.
Sure.
This is a request for determination. It's not a notice of intent.
Oh, I understand that, but is that still under Leah, under our bylaw? Does that also require a waiver for that?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to grant a waiver for working within the 25-foot no disturb zone?
I'll move to grant the waiver to work within the 25-foot no disturb zone.
Do I have a second?
I second.
And just to the applicant, this is just more procedurally. We understand that everything's within the roadway, but it's pretty explicit. We try to protect that 25-foot no disturb. So we're going through the process.
Sure, I understand. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. So I'll do a quick roll call on the approval of the waiver. So I'll start with Jonathan.
Yes.
Okay. Helen,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I'm also affirmative. So we've granted the waiver for that. As far as the RDA, okay, still haven't seen anyone from the public respond, giving them kind of the last call for that. As far as the RDA, do I hear a motion to to issue a negative determination? Still nothing from the public, so do I have a motion to issue a negative determination?
I'll motion to issue a negative determination.
Do I have a second?
I second.
If anyone has any questions, speak now, or we're going to have a roll call. So I'm going to start with John. What is your?
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Helen.
Yes.
I am also affirmative. So we've issued a negative determination. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Okay. Now that's the last public hearing, correct?
Yeah, the rest we just need to vote to continue.
They're all continuous. Okay. I will go through these continuations. Okay. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application of Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw permit, application for a Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw permit for the construction of a mixed-use development at 100 Westboro Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to April 21st. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to continue.
Do I have a second?
I second.
I will quickly go around. We have a motion and a second. So Patrick,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Helen,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm also affirmative. Next one up, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon abbreviated notice of resource area delineation and request for determination of applicability for delineation of resource areas at 124 Rear North Street and 73 Rear Old Westboro Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to April 21st. Do I have a motion to continue?
I'll motion to continue.
Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. So, John, are you in favor of the continuation?
Yes.
Helen, are you in favor of the continuation?
Yes, I am.
Alicia,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and I am also affirmative. Okay, and we did that one. So that's it for continuations, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we have continuations done. We have all public hearings done. Let's get to action items. So we have underneath the action items, meeting minutes are done. 7 Wesson Street is done. We discussed new reps, that's done. Flint Pond is done. Review draft conservation restriction for Great Meadow Gateway.
Yes, so this one, we recently looked at a CR drafted by the Land Trust for the Robinson parcels over by Silver Lake.
Yep.
So this one is nearly identical to that. It's for the extra parcel we're adding to the Great Meadow property. The only thing differing from the language in the Robinson draft is that they included language to reserve a right to add a parking area on Miriam in the future if we so chose, although that is in the riverfront, so that might get a little complicated, but they at least included language to let it be possible.
Okay.
And so the land trust is just asking for a motion to endorse them applying for this conservation restriction.
Okay. So this hasn't gone through any kind of legal review yet, or?
I forget if this one might be on the select board. No, the Robinson one is in front of the select board tonight. This one, I don't believe they've sent to the state just yet.
Okay, so we're just doing an endorsement and not approving it.
Right.
Okay. All right, so does anybody have questions on this conservation restrictions? So,
Not really. Which parcel of land is being added?
So I can show you guys. Just give me 1 second here. So right now we have this one and this one. You'll see the sign on George Hill right now for Great Meadow, and you come in on this really skinny part right here between a couple houses. What we are adding and what they are referring to as the gateway is this piece over here. So it would be a second means of access off of Miriam instead of George Hill.
Okay.
all right. And then just reserving kind of a potential for putting a little parking pull-off space there.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Is that where there's already a gravel thing?
So right now we just
Or am I
have
thinking of?
room for like 2 cars here
Oh,
with
okay.
the Great Meadow sign that we put up
okay.
a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So this would just be around the corner, just a second way in.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay. Great. So again, this is for an endorsement. It's not for, we're not approving anything. This will just help the land trust to continue and go in front of the selectmen. So do I have a motion to endorse the conservation restriction?
I'll move to endorse the conservation restriction.
Do I have a second? And you're muted, Alicia.
I'll second. Sorry.
No problem. So we'll take a vote on it. Patrick?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
I'm also affirmative. Okay, reviewing the dewatering plan for 35 Grafton Common.
So this is the library expansion project.
Yep.
We had a condition in their order that just like we typically do, if dewatering proves to be necessary, they will submit a plan to us as to how they plan to do that. So this is their plan, so I just needed to bring it before you guys. They have the detail here as to what they're going to do, and they have marked out locations to do so on the site as a whole as well.
Okay.
Just let me know what page you want up at what time.
Okay.
So did they already take care of all the contamination? So all the water they're dewatering is clean?
They're working through the soil right now.
Okay. Do they know about the water?
So they put in groundwater monitoring wells so far. I get the daily reports from the Andy Deshane, who's overseeing the project. He sends daily reports over. So I've been keeping an eye on those. They've been trucking a lot of soil off site lately. And they also installed their groundwater monitoring wells.
Okay. Because that would be my concern, is depending on what is, I don't know exactly what was in the soil because that wasn't in any of the stuff I read in terms of levels. But if there's stuff in the groundwater, what they're doing with the water, are they treating it? Are they removing it?
Okay.
Was that in any of the stuff?
Yeah, I would ask if they're under a permit from DEP for the cleanup, and if they are, then that should be addressed there. But it's a good question.
They have filed with DEP, and they've gone through all those processes for the contamination.
Okay.
I don't have a specific answer as to how the contamination pertains to the water that they're looking to deal with, so I'll check on that.
Okay, because they could either have to remove it completely from the site, they could remove it and treat it on site, or if there's not an issue, they can, I mean, there's a bunch of different options what they can do. I'm just interested to see what's going on. That's all.
And so Leah, do you need us to approve this detail? I mean, this is pretty basic.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt if you wanted to approve with a pending condition on it or something to that nature.
Yeah, I think we can approve this approach to doing dewatering. I think that the question needs to be is what's the quality of the water being dewatered?
Right. And what are they doing with it? Can you go back to that detail for a sec?
Yep.
Because it just shows it coming out. Are they putting it somewhere? Are they planning, if it's not contaminated, to just put it somewhere else on site, like discharge it on site, or are they putting it in a container and moving it?
My guess is that they're just pumping it over someplace else.
A different part, right.
To do a temporary lowering of the surface groundwater.
Yeah.
The question is, if it's contaminated,
you want to spread that.
They can't do that, yeah. Yeah, but generally it's pretty basic. But that's a big question. So
we'll find out.
Yeah, so do I have a motion that we generally approve of this detail in the process of dewatering for the site? However, we have a question of where is the water being pumped and the quality of the water being pumped. And they need to confirm that it's clean, and they need to indicate where they're dewatering to, where they're discharging to. There's also NIPD's permits that are involved in that too.
Yeah.
So, do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve that we're okay with the design, with everything else that you mentioned. So I don't have to repeat all that.
Right.
Hopefully.
So yeah, so pretty straightforward. It's the detail is fine. It is the discharge location in the water quality that we're looking for more information on. So, but we want to kind of check the box that we don't have an issue with the fundamental part of dewatering, but it's all the other questions. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Leah, just a quick question, because this is coming in on the library and John wasn't part of that. Should he be voting on this or not? This is kind of tangential.
I mean, it's not part of their public hearing process, so I don't see why not.
Okay. So John, it's up to you if you want to vote on this or not.
Sure, I would agree that the detail is reasonable, but I echo the same concerns with the condition of the water and where it's being. So yes.
All right, thank you. Helen?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm also affirmative. And I got everyone, right? It's getting late. Okay, it's not even that late, but it's been a long couple hours here. All right, so that's all set. I think the last one's update on 93 North Street.
Yeah, this is the property you guys probably remember. The family came in looking to donate. It used to be an orchard.
Yep.
And they wanted to donate the remainder once they carve off some lots for houses in honor of their mother. So in the meantime, we've been working on, we got some soil tests done there since it was historically an orchard to check for lead and arsenic. And those were found at quite high levels in the specific fields where the orchard was. However, there's an exemption with DEP if the reason the lead and the arsenic got there is historic herbicide and pesticide use per how those products were historically supposed to be used, then you are exempt from the reporting that's required to DEP. I also checked if that is still safe for hiking and passive recreation, and it is. The only thing it would impact is if we were going to do any sort of excavating or digging. So I've been working with Jen, the recreation director. She was hoping to maybe have a picnic area for families, maybe a pavilion. So if she was going to continue with that plan, she'd have to do it more towards the back of the property where the levels are not that high. Either that, or if she really wanted to in the middle, it would trigger remediation. But she's still on board with preserving the property for passive recreation and hiking. I also checked with our soil evaluator that there is no requirement for ongoing testing, so we wouldn't be on the hook to keep monitoring that. He raised a flag with, when he was on site, he saw some old like farm equipment and some old drums off in the corner and questioned what they might have contained in the past and has that leached into the ground. So I did check. We have plans for the subdivision that abuts this, and they are all on town water, so nobody's well is nearby to worry about. As of right now, we have a placeholder on the town meeting warrant for us to accept the land, should we choose to make that recommendation to the select board. So I'm just looking for you guys' feedback on how you would like to proceed. Jen also brought it to the Recreation Commission last night to get their take on it so that we can make an official recommendation to the select board before heading to town meeting.
So is the machinery and the drums, is that all going to be removed before the property's handed over?
It's not. So that was one of the things the family specified, that it would kind of be an as-is deal. We do have recreation, parks and cemeteries staff that is willing to remove whatever they can, whatever would be safe to, and he felt he had the capacity to do that.
And do they have any idea what might have been in those drums? I mean, I would assume it was maybe oil or something for machinery, but it could have been pesticides. Just getting into the removal of unknown drums can get dicey and expensive.
So I vaguely remember on the site walk we had with the family that it was like oil related to the machinery that's out there. I can certainly circle back and double check with him on that. I also remember him saying that when they were put out there, they were empty, they weren't full, but I can definitely confirm those things.
Okay. And I would just ask the question, even though I'm sure it's not true, but I would just ask to make sure that they don't know of any buried drums on the site. Because if it was an old farm property, it historically used to be okay with your empty drums, or you could put waste stuff in drums and just bury them. And I've worked on a lot of buried drum sites, and that also could be an issue down the road if someone discovers it and the town owns the property.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I would love to see the town get the property. I just think everyone has to have their eyes open and understand the risks that is associated with acquiring a farm property, and making sure that, that everyone proceeds with their eyes open. And that, you've already started going through the process of getting things tested and things like that. And it's then becomes a judgment, and it's, I guess from my perspective, I would recommend to do it with giving all the information to the selectmen to make sure they're fully aware of all the potential risk on the site. I mean, that's my thing. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Unknown drums, I've seen it go so bad, so fast.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had bad experiences doing soil testing on old farms.
Yeah.
It's just the way things were done, not good, not bad. It's just something that's a reality.
Right. So
it's really making sure the town, if they acquire it, they understand the risk and what we have to do to mitigate it. The first part was doing the testing. Now you know it. And does the selectman have an appetite to have open space that has contamination in it, knowing if they ever try to do something, they're going to be subject to remediation?
Well, so that's the other thing. So I know that Recreation had wanted to put up a pavilion, and you had said that involves some digging, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the concern with that is we don't know. I mean, obviously we know like in the area where the apple orchard used to be, there's probably nothing buried, but that's where there's arsenic and lead, so we're not going to dig there. If you get into these areas where there's, you know, I mean, it was common practice. They used to change the oil and just dump it in the ground. I mean, in old farms, it was very common practice. They used to bury drums, all kinds of stuff like that used to happen. So you run into an issue that if we decide we want to, or the town decides they want to put in a pavilion, and they start digging to put in a pavilion after we accept this land, and it's an area where they used to dump old oil, or they used to bury drums, or anything like that, all of a sudden you have a problem, that could be expensive to resolve, and you know, use limitations on your property. So that's just something to be conscious about when figuring out where you're going to put the pavilion, and when just looking at the property.
Yeah. And I would just kind of echo that, you know, the recommendation we would think about, it would have to have some sort of recommendation about limiting the expectations of putting a pavilion or other structures on site because of the potential of doing it. And
yeah, I would limit ground disturbance basically on the site, because you don't know what you're going to get. And based on what you're telling me, I would guess that there's probably some things we don't want to deal with under the soil.
Yeah. So it's just, we just want to make sure everyone is aware of those things, but I mean, it's still a really nice opportunity to get another nice piece of land.
So are there any other steps aside from having another conversation with the homeowner you would like me to take at this time?
I mean, do we have old map? I mean, I know it hasn't been this particular farm in a long time, but if we could get historical, I mean, if we did want to put in a pavilion, I'm just thinking if we could get historical maps of kind of the layout of the property, where barns used to be, where the apple orchard specifically was, that sort of stuff. If they did want to move forward with a ground disturbing activity, a group of people could probably get together and pick a good spot that would be relatively low risk based on the historic use of the property.
Okay.
It's just something to note.
So just give me 1 second, because I can pull up one visual to show you right now.
Does that make sense to you, Sandy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it's just, I don't want to say, I just don't want to run away from the property.
Right.
But you gotta understand you're accepting a certain level of risk, and that risk is probably not a big one until you touch the ground.
Right. So minimizing ground disturbance would be key in this spot.
I wonder if the home.
Go ahead, Pat.
I was gonna wonder if the homeowner would have any old maps and even old pictures maybe that would aid in future development that we could try to acquire at the same time.
I can ask that too.
Worth asking, maybe.
Alicia, in your experience, if it's a pavilion and it's 4 sonotubes or standard footings, do they have to just remediate the soil for the footings, or is it for?
No, once there's a problem, then it's your problem. So
Yeah.
once you find a problem, then you have a problem.
Yeah. Once it's reportable.
Yeah.
And right now it's not being reported because there's an exception for historical sites.
Exactly. But if we find, my concern is finding oil, basically.
Sure.
Because the buried drums, because the farm equipment, because of just the historical use of the property, because it's that old. Finding oil and stuff in the ground, and then it's a big expense and you know, land use limitations and that sort of stuff.
So what are we looking at here?
So this is the map that the soil evaluator drew out, and he took samples in each of these 14 areas. So the ones that were high in lead and arsenic are 3, 4, 5, 12, 13, and 14. This is where the orchard was historically. The levels in 1 and 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 were acceptable. From what I recall from our site walk, the drums were way in this back corner, which I believe was in 8.
So when you say acceptable, that's below reporting levels?
Correct.
Okay.
Was there an old barn or something on the property?
So there's still some of the farm buildings today up front here.
Okay.
I think there was maybe 1 or 2 more, but they were still right towards the front.
Okay. And do you know, was there a specific location they were proposing to put a pavilion? I would assume somewhere like in 2.
So there's actually wetlands up towards the front. So
Okay.
I don't think between needing some parking off the road and then needing to have like a footbridge across the wetlands, I think that it would actually have to be towards the rear.
Okay.
But I can talk with Jen again about that.
Okay.
What are they doing with this? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alicia.
No, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at where the farm equipment and the drums were, and where they were likely to like change the oil on the tractor. It's probably going to be where the barn is, or in the rear of the property where they put the drums. So if they're going to do ground disturbance activities, I'd say like 10, 11 is probably the least risky area, but even still, it's a little concerning to me just that what they're finding on the site. That's all.
What part of this property are they looking to donate? I'm just trying to figure out what.
Sure. So it's all of these blue squares in addition to, oh, it's cut off here. Hang on, let me pull up on Geo instead. So the family has gone ahead and done an A&R plan to carve off 4 lots along the front here.
Yep.
And they are also going to carve off the existing farmhouse. So that would leave us with a narrow area here and then the whole back.
Okay, cool. Okay. And the abutting parcels, what are they? Other
Over
than
here?
Residential. I'm talking number 47.
47. Oh, okay.
Oh.
That's owned by Roscoe Bicknell.
Okay, so I'm just curious and stuff. But anything else for kind of passive recreation or doing, like community gardens or something like that, you wouldn't be able to do that on this site.
Say the end again about community gardens.
So if you want to do community gardens, this would not be a good place to do community gardens.
Correct.
But you could go out and walk and enjoy the site, but you just can't. Yeah, okay.
That was my first question to him because I had walked there.
Yep. No, it's just, it's those are the things that you really want to ask. And I think it's, someone's trying to do something nice, but you don't want the town to hold something that they're going to be responsible for something. And since it came through the Conservation Commission, we just want to make sure the selectmen have all of the information so they can make an informed decision.
So I'll try to have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
How deep, how high was the lead and how deep was it down? Was it right at the surface or was it down a ways?
I believe he only sampled a foot or 2 down. I can send you the whole report, or it might be in Dropbox already.
Okay.
If it's not, I'll send it to you guys.
When do you need us to vote on this?
So that was what I was gonna say. So I can try to have more information from the homeowner for our next meeting.
Okay.
However, if the select board is gonna need to be reviewing a town meeting warrant, we might need to have more than just a placeholder. So my next question was going to be, if you take the pavilion piece out of it and kind of figure that that's the Recreation Commission's baby anyway, just from an open space, hiking, passive recreation, you guys are in support. It's just sort of when anyone's looking to dig that flags get raised. Am I hearing that correct?
So if there's lead right at the surface, like if the lead contamination's right at the surface, depending on what the levels are, that could be concerning, just because like if people are out there with young children or people track at home, that lead's, all kids have to get tested for lead, and it doesn't take a lot of lead on your boots to then expose your child if it's to then have their lead test spike. Just because I've seen it with people working at job sites before that aren't necessarily taking the proper precautions.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find the chart of his results right now while we're on here.
I mean, if like someone, I'm just thinking like someone lives near there, they're out there a lot with their family, that sort of thing, with kids because of the frequency of lead testing and the low limits for it, it's not hard to create an exposure.
So these, can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. These are his results. The red are the problem areas.
Okay.
Lead's on the bottom, arsenic's on top.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And then these three over here.
Does it say the depths? Am I missing it?
It doesn't on here. Let me see if I
Okay.
can find that.
If they hand dug all those pits, it's probably a foot or two, I would imagine, like Leah was saying, but
The top 6 inches right here.
So it is right at this top.
Yeah, and those, I mean,
I don't have a good sense of how high is high type of thing. I can look at order of magnitude and that's it. Did the report include any recommendations or any direction on use or anything like that?
We had more of a conversation around that. He didn't put too much of that kind of thing in his report, but a bunch of us got on a video call with him, the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, Jen, and I, and asked a bunch of questions about the different ways we might want to use the property.
Yep.
He also said, so it's Scott Parker of Parker Environmental Corporation. He talked to his risk assessor, who felt that hiking and passive recreation were safe. Personally, I don't exactly know what a risk assessor is looking at when they say that. Not to say they're wrong, I just don't know enough about it.
I mean, my only concern would be, I mean, some of those lead levels are pretty significant. So I'm just looking stuff up right now. So 15 to 40 ppm is like regular lead levels in soil. So in your backyard is probably what you're going to see. So that's substantially higher. I've done lead projects before. I could go back and look through some stuff to see what I've worked with before. But my big thing would be lead is so hazardous to children. I mean, it can cause such major developmental issues that if there's children using it with some level of frequency, particularly if that area isn't wooded and it's clear, maybe people are having picnics or playing ball, those sorts of things, that would be my concern, is exposing young children to lead, especially because it's on the surface and it's pretty significant.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my concern is, you know, you hate to not accept a gift like that, but I think you got to do it and understand and understand is I guess the big question is, should there be additional testing done? You know, yeah, it's hard. That's a hard one.
Leah, what were the samples again? The ones that were actually over?
I'll pull it back up.
Because there was like one that was almost 100, I think. It was like 92 or something. So I was looking it up as well, and it looks like the CDC recommends that if it goes over 50 parts per million, that's when there's a potential lead exposure through ingestion.
Right. So
And I mean, we got like 338 here.
Right.
And it's not. It's an order.
Oh, I was looking at the arsenic. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's pretty significant.
So, another thing to note, if I can find, okay, this. So right now, the way the property is now, there's a lot of bittersweet all over these fields. So when we did go in for a walk, there's somewhat of a path in through 1 and 2, a little ways through 3, and then it cut over here to the woods. So that was fairly established as a path, and then you're just out in the woods. We could create paths where we wanted to, but when we came back around and then we checked out, because we wanted to see what this farm equipment was they were talking about, so we specifically went over to the corner to check that out, and then we had to try to make our way back through. It was really tough going. The bittersweet was practically tripping you to the ground all the time. So there is always the option to just leave, I don't know, leave all that as is, let nature take its course over there, and tend to have more hiking trails, you know, just come in and get over to the woods, and the rest can just, I don't know, be habitat value, or there's that possibility as well.
Yeah, this is a tough one, just because
I know.
you're trying to balance. I mean, you're trying to balance, protecting the open space versus protecting the town from exposure, and then trumping all of that is the safety of the public.
Right.
And not that I'm going to go out there and roll on the ground, but you've got a 3-year-old out there picking stuff up. That's not
Right.
a good thing. So, what did the what was kind of the thoughts from the recreation director and from the town administrator?
So the recreation director was still in support of pursuing it. I haven't followed up with her to see what her commission said last night, so I will do that. The town administrator didn't want to give his opinion because he didn't want to taint what our recommendations might be.
So according to the National Library of Medicine, they said an acceptable level of 600 ppm in soil suggests that it would not cause blood levels above the threshold for children under 5 years of age.
I think the thing that we have to do is
I mean,
for
we're
us,
so close to that. I feel like, yeah, someone else should make that choice.
absolutely. I think first of all, even though you've got experience in here, I'd rather have someone that's hired by the town, that's professional, or whether it's the same person that's already done the testing, to give us their opinion. You need more than just looking up on
Right.
what different guidelines are. And I know that we did not spend a whole lot of money on that, but I mean, that information is worth every cent we spent on it. So, can you check with the consultant to find out what it would take for him to give an opinion on the use of that? I know he told you what he said, but he hasn't put it in writing.
Yeah, I mean, I do have like a written memo of sorts when he answered our questions. If that's helpful at all, I'll pull that up for you guys now. It's not like a formal report or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with Alicia that we shouldn't be making this decision. We can give the overarching thing, yeah, we want this property, but this is a public safety issue, and we need the right people to make those decisions.
So the first question was about would there be ongoing testing required, and he said no. The second part was, well, hold on, that scrolled really fast. He had talked about additional site evaluation that he was recommending, so we had him detail the cost of that.
Yeah.
So that's number 2 here. Let me know if I'm going too fast. Allowable uses without triggering the need to remediate the soil. He said, based on the preliminary risk assessment performed with the existing data set, passive recreation activities such as hiking, walking, etc. Gardening in the soil would be an excluded use, no community gardens, no sandbox, or things of that nature.
Yeah, makes sense.
I had also asked if we were to just have hiking trails, would we have to put up signage or anything telling people what's there? He said it's not required. But you could put some up that's saying stay on the paths due to the historic use of the property as an apple orchard, don't dig in the soil. What's the risk to the town if we wanted to take ownership and pursue a picnic and pavilion area? He said construction activities would not require by regulation anything specific other than soil management in the event it was required to be exported. Another thing to note is initially he did report to DEP the lead and arsenic because he felt that it met their 2-hour reporting requirement.
Yep.
Then when he dug further into it, he found this exemption for a historic orchard and is working on retracting it. So that's where we stand right now with DEP.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's you know, wanting the parcel, that's great for open space, but we need to be more certain about the public safety aspect of it. The additional testing, what did he say that would accomplish?
So that was around the drums and the farm equipment.
Okay.
That's out back. And figuring out what was there and where it has gone.
I don't think that's a can of worms we want to open. That's just my opinion. If we're able to get the stuff off site and get it removed safely, I don't think we want to go digging in the soil looking for that kind of contamination because it sticks around a long time and it travels. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. It's just that if the town takes possession of it, they're going to have it for a very, very long time. You know, and since they're taking this as a donation as is,
right,
then they own it and there's no going back. So, I mean, I think this is kind of a bigger question about if we did additional testing, what's the exposure to the town? At this point, it would be, if we found something, it wouldn't be anything because you wouldn't accept the property.
Right. But if we do additional testing and find a reportable condition and have to report it, then we're putting that on the property owner to clean it up?
Correct. Which is, yes, yep, absolutely.
So.
Yeah. So just to kind of take a straw of everyone based on this conversation, it makes me nervous to put the town in the position of potentially acquiring a piece of land that, one, could cost them a lot of money, but two, could be an issue with public safety. That makes me nervous. So I don't know, you know, Alicia, your kind of opinion on that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, knowing what I know, I'd be hesitant to take my son there just because he's 4 and he'll roll in the dirt and pick flowers and you're having a picnic and all of a sudden he's digging those sorts of things make me concerned, let alone if we, you know, for people that didn't know.
Yeah. Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to take the property if it made sense, but it doesn't. I think at minimum we need to, like you were saying earlier, have someone else be able to weigh in and make a recommendation. And also at minimum, you know, go forward with providing all of the facts that we know about. But it is concerning. I would hate to not be able to, for the town not to be able to accept the land, but also, you know, if it doesn't make sense, if there is a lot of potential liability, then it may not make sense. So that is and not just the, fiscal liability to the town, but the potential danger to getting families out into that land is, so I don't know what we can do from here to get more, get a better opinion on how dangerous that might be, if anything.
I don't know, Helen, what do you think?
Well, the discussion is quite valid, but maybe we could go back. They want to donate the property. They probably want to donate the property for some kind of tax write-off. It's a beautiful piece of property, but maybe we could reapproach them and say that it would be wonderful, but we just have to kind of redefine the terms of the donation. And it's kind of like selling a house, and if you need to put a Title V in, then the homeowner has to absorb the cost. Maybe we just need to see exactly, do some testings and more testings and inquiries, and if indeed there are all kinds of horribleness, have them remove it at their expense. And because that's a lot of land, and I would hate, well, the dribble down is that, folks that want to donate property to the Conservation Commission and as open space might get kind of spooked by doing that because, well, geez, they don't want our land. I agree with everyone's concerns, and they're very valid, but maybe we need to reapproach to the owners, to the owner and the family to say, there's some issues here. We're thinking outside the box, and we're thinking for public safety, and this is the day and age where that's a huge thing.
I mean,
That's my 2 cents.
Sorry.
No,
Outside of testing, is it really reasonable to even mitigate that type of stuff? That's sort of a large scale.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that Helen said is really valid into what Leah had said earlier. They want to give it to the town as is. And maybe that's where the discussion should move towards, is not accepting it as is. So, and John, do you have any kind of thoughts?
I agree with what, kind of the consensus was. I think the risk is pretty high because going out and using these properties are mostly kids and people with dogs, and it's people that are going to potentially encounter this hazard. So I agree with what Alicia was saying. I also understand what Helen's saying, because we don't want to deter someone from giving land. So there must be some type of compromise in terms of either additional testing or some type of coordination there. I see the risk in being a father of a 4-year-old. My son would be rolling around and doing whatever in the woods. So
I would say, if they're indicating that the town accept it as is, that's not acceptable. And there has to be some sort of negotiation on what it is the town's accepting, so there's a reasonable risk that they can take on and not be responsible for a lot of money in the future, but at the same time not doing additional testing that puts the homeowner in a position where they end up having to clean something up. So it's a tight walk, and I think it goes back to more of an agreement of what the town is accepting in the conditions that they're accepting it. So I think and I would guess our town council would have strong opinions on what that language would be, on what we would accept, knowing the information that we know now because of the testing we did. Even though it's accepted, there's an exception for it, there's a public safety issue, I think, is a bigger part. So does that give you any kind of direction, Leah, or are we just doing not giving
Yeah.
an answer.
So the general consensus is we do not want to accept it as is.
I think that's a huge risk, and I think we'd be in trouble. And other people, please speak up.
I mean, is there any other, like, how does this compare to other historical properties that towns have acquired? And what other steps have we or other towns taken in the past in a similar situation?
I think the library is a good example of inheriting a lot of issues of soil
I
protection.
agree.
And I don't know what the bills are for that, but that's significant. And I don't think we could go in, without trying to protect the town and just take it as is. I don't think that's a wise thing to do. And so that would be my kind of communication to the selectmen.
Okay. I think right now that's enough, and I'll check with Jen as to what the Recreation Commission's thinking too. And we'll meet again with the town administrator and see, since it has to go through the select board anyway, where they want to take it from there.
Okay, that sounds good. So, I was just looking at the comments from the public. Did you see those, Leah?
Yes. So Rob Aberg has joined us from the Land Trust. So he was at the select board, like I mentioned earlier, about the CR. So he just hopped over here, is mentioning that they were looking to donate the land in honor of their mother's dying wish.
And we all appreciate that. It's just, we have to be, our responsibility is, for the town and public safety, and we'd love to have the land, but not as is, without protecting the town at some level. So.
Well, I think we need to go back to the Ingvalls and do some more inquiry as to, okay, what did go on here? I mean, that's a family plot of land. Can you even suggest, through whatever way means, diaries, rememberings, and just see, and well, we changed oil in that Macy Ferguson tractor for the last 50 years out in the back 40, and yeah, we just put it into the ground. Well, then we need to then redefine the donation. I think it's important to honor this family's wishes, but I agree that we just need to, in this day and age, you just can't accept. But it's not that I would feel horrible to not honor this quite large piece of property and say, here, and that's just doesn't make for the commission to look good either. I mean, accepting the possibility of contamination or potential risk hazards is just as is bad, but it's also like not cool to say, well, sorry, we can't take this.
I don't want to.
How's that?
Yeah, I don't want to shut it totally down, but I want to proceed cautiously.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right.
I
If you've got go ahead, Patrick.
I was just going to make the point that I think our responsibility is to the town more than their wishes. Although I'll reiterate, I would love to be able to accept the land, and I hope that somehow it works out. But we need to be cautious, like we've all said.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Leah, is that it? So you have enough? I think that's not the best way to end a long evening, but so we have successfully gotten through our first remote public hearing. And we had a kind of a strange introduction for John into the whole process of what it means to be on the Conservation Commission. This is not normal, but you know, we're doing the best we can. Thank you for participating, and thanks everyone else for participating. Is there anything else that we need to talk about, Leah, before we adjourn?
I just have two small things. One is Rob Aberg is asking if we had any questions on the CR. I do not believe we did.
Nope.
And the second is, I was just wondering, Sandy, if MACC gave you any more guidance about signatures.
They didn't. I thought there's been a bunch of attorneys and law firms sending out those type of summaries. And so I thought that was a good summary that you sent out. And in it, they basically said, the key thing is that you don't have to worry about recording it, and it won't prevent you from getting a building permit or anything else, because I guess the registries are not open.
Okay, so just as an example, so say the water district, which is an RDA, so they wouldn't be recording that one anyway.
Right.
But they're going to be looking to start their water main project ASAP, and I'm not going to have a packet to hand them. How does that work?
So when you say a packet to hand them, what's in that packet?
So the actual determination with the conditions we specified, and then you guys' signatures in it.
So that all can be done electronically, and we can sign them electronically.
Okay.
There isn't anyone that's saying that, so it's the Registry of Deeds that's requiring the ink stamps, the ink signature, correct?
So far, yes. So if we play that one out, for example, the 95 Millbury Street. The way I'm reading the orders from the governor is that we have up until 45 days after the state of emergency is lifted to have documents issued or.
Right.
You know.
So, so in that perspective, it's, you can still create the documents. You can still, circulate them, issue them. We can come up with a process to do something electronically, knowing that, which is going to be a pain in the butt, after we're done, you have a whole big file, and we sit down for 2 hours signing all of the orders that were issued during the emergency. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot around we can do that. I would not ask anyone to have to go into the town offices to sign something. We won't do it at where we work. I'm not going to ask anyone to do that. And I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that. That's, that's kind of the bottom line. And that's what those legislation was for, is to provide paths around that. So.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure I knew what to tell people when they start pushing for documents.
So we can issue the documents. It's just not signed yet, so it's just like you can issue them a copy of the meeting minutes that said that we had a vote and it was approved, right?
Okay.
And then they can do it, and then it really comes down to if the building inspector allows a house a permit, and then it's going to come down to having a conversation within the town departments, just what the priority is for individuals to keep safe, especially for the next 3 weeks. I mean, after that, who knows what's going to happen, but from everything people are saying, the next couple of weeks are critical, and we should all be, really paying attention to all the recommendations. So.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anyone else has any other kind of thoughts on that? I mean, I think we need to deal with what we can and not hold things up, but we also are not going to put anyone in harm's way.
Yeah.
I couldn't live with myself if something happened to someone else. That's not cool. So. All right, great. Anything else?
That's all I have.
It's great. So welcome, John, and thanks everyone for being so patient and hopefully this isn't too many more meetings we have to do this, because this was kind of brutal on me, talking all the time.
You did a really good job.
Yeah,
You did.
I thought it went smoothly.
Yeah, it's just yeah. It's just
A lot more talking for you.
Yeah. So we're gonna rotate next. Who wants to be the chair for the next hearing?
Who draws the short straw?
Yeah. So that's great. So thanks, Leah and Samantha, for pulling everything together and coordinating this. Great job. Appreciate it, as always.
You're welcome.
And so after that, do I have a motion to close this hearing?
I will move to adjourn this hearing.
I have a second.
I second.
And we're going to try doing, just have everyone say aye. Does everyone agree? Say aye.
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 I could hear everyone and tell who everyone was. So we are closed. So thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.